Hi, I'm Orchi, and on this channel, I talk about books I've been reading. It's usually fiction, but not always. Can't be too rigid about that kind of thing. Um, and today, I want to talk about this novella that I've read recently. It's called Foster by Claire Keegan, and it's a very tiny book, as you can see. But it just might be one of my favorite reads of the year so far. As the name suggests, it's centered around a foster situation. The book's from the point of view of a little girl, and the entire narration is from a child's eye view, which is something I personally really enjoy. I think a story about that is not otherwise a children's story, but still told from the perspective of a child, makes for an interesting exploration into otherwise what are already considered norms or conventions. Because, for the kid, everything is new. And especially in this case, which is that the child is from a rather dysfunctional, discordant family, and that makes her a very anxious, highly attuned child who really registers and observes the adults around her. She's like highly attuned to their emotional reactions and moods. So that combined with the fact that she's a kid and all sorts of social dynamics are something that are new to her, and she registers them as such, I think that makes for like a much more interesting exploration of adult dynamics and interpersonal relationships, because like right off the bat she's being driven to the couple who will be fostering her for the next couple of months, and she's in the car with her dad, and you see that from the way she's thinking you can tell that she has no idea about the people who she'll be living with. So we're told that they're relatives of her mother's. And so I guess we wouldn't call them a stranger, but to her they are, because when she's dropped there, the woman mentions that the last time she saw her, she was a baby. So these are strangers to her, essentially. And you can feel her apprehension about living with strangers. And at the same time, you also realize that the dad couldn't care less. And that gives you a sort of insight into her relationship with her own father. And I really enjoyed that all of this is shown just by how she feels and how she interacts with each of these people instead of being told to us. And this is a very emotionally charged read because, like I mentioned, the child is a very anxious kid. And even though I guess the usual trope would be that the foster situation might turn out to be a nightmare, and that's what this is building up to, but very quickly we find out that the Kinsellas, and that's the name of the couple that she's being fostered with, are very tender towards her. And within the first day of being there, she feels at home. She almost wants this to be her home, which is another hint that her actual home might not have been that great. And there's more callbacks to her not having a great relationship with her own father, who incidentally also drove off without getting any of her stuff out of the car. She's left here with this couple without any of her things with her. No clothes, no nothing. And then another interesting thing about having a child narrator is that I guess most people knowingly or unknowingly act very different around other adults as opposed to kids. And she also registers that. She notices things like how Mrs. Kinsella uses a very different voice to talk to her and with her father. And just by that, you already know that she doesn't have a very high opinion of her dad, which, as the story goes on, is very understandable. And these interpersonal relationships are just so well built in this story. The Kinsellas themselves, their dynamic is also explored through the child's eyes. And I love how well the relationships are shown just by very minutiae, like very minute gestures between the couple and how they treat her and how they act when they're outside together and around other people. I really enjoy that aspect of storytelling. And at the same time, the writing itself is also very beautiful. There's not too many words used. The prose is very economical. But at the same time, it manages to evoke a lot of emotion. And it also has this very lyrical quality that I really enjoyed. I really love the writing style, which I guess made the book that much better in my eyes. And it's just a really enjoyable read throughout. And the characters are so well fleshed out. And I realized that I really enjoy not being told as much as shown how dynamics work. I liked how the Kinsella's dynamic were, and over the course of the story, you found out that they have experienced a personal tragedy not too long ago themselves. And it also shapes how tender they are towards this child. And the story unfolds through the kid's eyes, and her name is Petal. But you don't even find this very basic information out about her until Mr. Kinsella or John addresses her by name at some point. And at the core of the story, it is Petal and her feelings and how she becomes to, feel at home with the strangers and get very attached to them. And that's also an interesting thing that, a child that has been neglected until now will cling to anyone who shows any sort of affection towards her. And it's almost a little heartbreaking when you come to realize that she has never really known much affection or care before in her childhood. And she's so young. And she sometimes doesn't even have the words to describe what she's feeling. And that just makes it a lot more realistic and grounds you into how young this child is. It's just a very well done exploration of childhood and this conflicted feelings in this one child about getting attached to another couple, but having to go back to her own parents. And she has parents, but this is where she would rather be. And for such a young person, this is a huge inner conflict. And I think this story just explores that inner conflict so well without ever really looking down at her or being condescending because she's a kid. Her feelings are just as real and vibrant. And just for that, I would highly recommend this book. Yeah, thanks for watching.